What's good, Mo? Basically, YouTube, this is going to be a series that I'm doing on the Marvel's Avengers game that just dropped by Square Enix. And first character we're going to be starting with today is the Hulk. Hulk is the first character that I leveled up to 50. As you can see, I'm sitting at one-on-one power. I'm not 150 yet, but I do feel as though that I have mastered the Hulk. I went through all of his skills, his specialty, his mastery. I've tried out different builds. I've tried out every specialization, all the different perks, and I've come to the conclusion that this is the build that I feel like best suits Hulk for pretty much all around in game. Just this build can get you through anything as a Hulk player. If you main the Hulk, I definitely recommend this build for anybody that does, main the Hulk or just looking to play him, period. I feel like this is the best build for him, and I'm going to get into that and show you guys why I feel that way. Of course, since I'm level 50, I have all of his combat abilities, skills. I mean, heavy attacks, grab attacks, his rage. You want to get all of these, of course. That's for any character that you have, all of the Avengers. You want to make sure you get your first page and your primary skills completely maxed out. That was always the case. Now, when it comes to his support heroic ability, Bone Shaker, you want to get your 4 down the middle, of course, to get the immunity to the status effects. And you also want to get the extra duration and the extra stun damage. If you get the first boost for the support ability for Bone Shaker, you get an extra duration by 4 seconds, which might not sound like a lot, but when you're in Bone Shaker, you will definitely feel that 4-second boost, and it definitely fucking matters, trust me. The immunity to status effects, not only does it give you the immunity to status effects, but it also boosts Bone Shaker by another 4 seconds. The immunity to status effects is great versus any hive mission because there are a lot of enemies that tend to deal status damage, such as electric, pem particles, gamma, plasma, etc. So having that immunity to those things, especially being a big target like the Hulk, and someone that's always up in the face of enemies, is just great because not only are you immune to damage but also status effects. Without this, you would still be able to be affected by status effects, but now with this also, status effects will not break through the Bone Shaker armor basically, so it sort of doubles up on your armor in a way, because before this, if I'm not mistaken, status effects that are applied to you still affect your health, but after you get the frenzy upgrade, then they won't. You feel me? After that, you have the unsteady ground, which I said gives you 25% more stun damage. So when you do Bone Shaker near enemies, it'll stun them, or has a larger chance to stun them, which opens them up for finishers. And stuns is one of the most important things as Hulk, to keep your ultimate up, to keep your support ability up, and your heroic. You feel me? You want to be opening up enemies for finishers by stunning them as much as possible, and then finishing them and taking them and using your takedowns to generate heroic orbs to get back, your ultimate, your assault, and your support abilities. So basically, that's the build that I came up with, was a stun build, if that makes sense. It's just constantly about stunning and juggling the enemy, opening them up for takedowns, and just walloping on damage while also being able to take in a fuck ton of damage. So what I use for the specialization 1 of Bone Shaker is the rampaging Bone Shaker. Basically, if you defeat 5 enemies while in Bone Shaker, it extends the duration by 5 seconds. The other one gives you a health boost, and the other one here gives you an intrinsic rage boost. I'm gonna be completely honest, the other two are not bad, but being able to defeat 5 enemies and get an extra 5 seconds tagged on to Bone Shaker, it's just kind of unbeatable, you know what I'm saying? The other two are not bad at all, but having extra duration on Bone Shaker, if you're able to pull off, that succession of 5 enemies defeated, it feels great, and it's definitely worth it being able to keep that up. And then over here, I'm using Savage Heroism, which is basically anybody that I use Bone Shaker with will be taunted, and then the enemies that I defeat that are taunted by the Bone Shaker ability will drop heroic orbs. Heroic orbs will refill your support, assault, and ultimate ability. So of course you'll be getting everything back much quicker. Like I'm saying, this build is basically just building up your support, assault, and ultimate as much as possible to constantly have them active, and just stunning the hell out of enemies so you could take them down easily and use them for fodder, basically, for heroic orbs. That's basically what this is about. Over here for Stranglehold in the Specialization 1, I use Devastating Charge. Obviously 200% more stun damage. It's pretty much guaranteed to always open up enemies for finishers if you are able to, you know, land a Stranglehold on the ground or by enemies. They will get juggled up into the air, and as soon as they hit the ground, about 3 to 4 enemies at a time will always be opened up to a finisher. And right there, that's 4 heroic orbs on the ground for you. So I'm pretty sure, you know, you'll get the gist of it. I'll definitely be showing gameplay and not just breaking this down for you guys, but I'll be showing this in action also. Another good ability is Irradiated Destruction. Irradiated Destruction is basically a buff and a debuff. You run up, when you pop Stranglehold and you slam the ground, it lets out this gamma field, sort of like in an AoE radius. It's not super huge, but it has a good little distance on it, and as time goes down, the radius gets smaller and it dissipates. But enemies that are in the area take a small amount of gamma damage while also taking more damage as well. So not only do they take the gamma damage while being like set in the zone, it sort of debuffs their resilience or defense and allows them to take more damage from you and your team. So if you're looking for more of a support ability for Stranglehold, then I would recommend Irradiated Destruction. You know, if you have somebody on your team that can generate the heroic ability, the heroic orbs faster for you, and you don't really need the stuns from Stranglehold takedown to, you feel me, generate the orbs off the enemies, then I definitely recommend Irradiated Destruction to replace it. Top one is trash. It's not trash, but compared to the other two, it's just not really doesn't really mesh well with the build. Let's just say that doesn't really mesh well with the build. The taunt for Stranglehold from Barbaric Charge, not really necessary. You have the taunt from Bone Shaker. You don't need 2 taunts in my opinion. In my opinion, doubling up on Stranglehold and getting 2 charges of it is the most useful out of all of these. If you are having trouble staying alive with the Hulk, I guess you can do 50% for regen packs, but with Hulk having his intrinsic ability Rage, being able to deal damage and get health back as he deals damage or takes damage, I don't think it's necessary to have any perk that necessarily gives health back for the Hulk, because his intrinsic ability gives health back in itself, and then it has a mastery for it to give, I think, 20% more health back than usual. So it's not really needed. As long as you're putting on the damage and you're putting on pressure, you should be good with the Hulk. You should always be able to heal up, you know. Just basically, I don't think you really need anything that regenerates willpower or drops regen packs in terms of your specializations with the Hulk, besides with his ultimate, and I'll get into that next. But like I said, I feel like double Stranglehold is just perfect because you can run up to 2 different sets of enemies, stun 4 groups, and you have 8 people open for takedowns if you're using the 200% extra stun. Or you can run to 2 different groups of enemies, drop down your gamma field from Irradiated Destruction, and you have 2 different debuff fields up with enemies who are taking damage and also able to take more damage from your team. So I definitely think double Stranglehold is the best second specialization for Stranglehold. For your specialization 1 for Thunderclap, you can get more distance from epicenter. I don't really think it's useful if you tend to do it from far away. I guess that's good for you, but Hawk is just an up close in the face character, you know, constantly just in everybody's face. So I feel like it's really useless to have more range, because all the time when I use it, I'm pretty much point blank range, so I don't really see any use for it. If you're looking for more stun damage and just more damage overall, Fault Line is not bad. It will do more damage than the specialization I'm using, but it doesn't have the support utility. It will open the enemies up for more stuns, and then it's guaranteed to almost do 10 plus 40k damage all the time. It hits hard as hell, and it demolishes pretty much all low level fodder, as like just one shots them, and anything that isn't dead will be stunned and open for a finisher. So if you want to swap Fault Line from what I'm using, and you know, run, say for instance, Irradiated Destruction Fault Line instead of Ground Zero, excuse me, and Devastating Charge, then you know, you can do that to swap around if you'd like to. But me personally, I love Ground Zero for Thunderclap. I feel like this is the best specialization for the fucking Thunderclap Ultimate for Specialization 1, man. It's just, it's great in every way in my opinion. It doesn't make you invincible, but it feels like it. You clap, with thunderclap, and he basically leaves up a gamma field, as you can see, as it describes, and it heals you and the team for 2% willpower every second. And if your intrinsic and hero rating is up, that percentage in heals goes faster, so you'll heal more rapidly. And the area of effect on it is huge, definitely huge. And then the enemies that are caught in the field also take a massive amount of gamma damage over time. So it's not as immediate, boom, big 50k plus hit off the rip as Fault Line, you know what I'm saying? But the damage over time that it leaves, if the enemies are sitting in it and trying to still attack you, most enemies will try to back out of the field, which will leave them open for a grab, and you can just slam them back and forth in the gamma zone, and they still take the damage over time while they're in your hands. So it's just so much damage buildup in a area while also being healed. I just don't feel like you can really beat it. It's perfect for boss fights. Like I stay in bosses' faces with this. I'll pop Ground Zero versus Abomination or Taskmaster or pretty much anything, and I'll be able to just sit in their face and wail on them, not even using rage, without having to worry about my health. Then over here, I'm using the heroic recovery, where basically any enemy defeated by thunderclap has a 50% chance to drop heroic orbs, which will also help you get thunderclap, stranglehold, and bone shaker back faster, therefore basically keeping you in the cycle of always keeping your ultimates and your abilities constantly up and always having them as often as possible. In the mastery tree, for the combat melee, for the grab specialization, I'm using vice grip, which basically allows attacks. Whenever you attack while holding enemy, you won't be interrupted anymore. You can't get stunned. They can be knocked out of your hand, but if you are in the middle of attacking with them, then you can't be interrupted. So say for instance, if an enemy catches you in an opening, yes, they can knock them out of your hand, but if you are attacking while holding the enemy, you're basically sort of immune to being interrupted. You can use double down or double bludgeon. I call it double down. Hell, enemies take less damage if you want to try to use the enemies more. I don't really think it's really necessary, honestly. It makes you do less damage to the enemies, not really anything that I care for, but allows you to use them more. Combatant shield is not bad at all. I've used it, and it's a good defensive ability. If you're looking for a little bit more survivability when it comes to grab the enemies, you can use them as a shield, combatant shield, and it's not bad. But personally, I feel like the vice grip comes in handy, because you can just slam an enemy that you grabbed all over another one, and they don't even have a chance to interrupt you unless they find an opening and you're not attacking. Hard swings and increase the impact damage of all hell enemies by 20%, basically allowing enemies to be staggered more, knocked off their balance more, and opening them up for grabs and possible finishers or stuns. Enhanced increases your success chance for grabs for about 50%. You will miss some grabs. This is just true with the Hawk, but the enemies will dodge. Sometimes his arms have a little T-Rex effect. They're a little too short. You feel me? You just have to try to grab again. Honestly, it doesn't really bother me too much. I prefer having the extra damage and being able to knock enemies off balance more with held enemies with hard swings. Regen slams is like a that I said I don't really need with the Hawk, with his intrinsic ability being rage and giving him health back. I don't necessarily think you need anything else outside of ground zero for the ultimate to get willpower or health back, or anything to regen health for him necessarily, unless you're having trouble with survivability. Then if you feel like that's a better pick for you, so be it. But I feel like this is the best way to utilize not only his damage but his healing also. For the most important part, for his takedown, and out of anything you do in mastery, when I tell you, in my opinion, the most important thing for this build to make sure you are using for his takedown specialization is heroic takedown mastery. Performing a takedown spawns a heroic orb. This is what makes this build. Every time you take down an enemy, you will get an heroic orb, which will give you back your ultimate, your support, and your assault ability. That is why you are trying to stun enemies as much as possible, juggle them, and open them, and get them vulnerable to your takedowns, because as soon as they do, they are guaranteed to give you a heroic orb, and then that will also give you back support, assault, and heroic abilities. And the more you can keep that up, the immunity from bone shaker, the damage and stuns from stranglehold, the heals from ground zero, you just see the real powerhouse that the Hulk is, basically, from just constantly having all those abilities. You feel me? He's just a straight pressure. He's just a force. It's hard for an enemy, even the big elites, to really stop him because he's just so massive, and just the momentum behind everything with this build is just constant. You feel me? It's hard for enemies to break the momentum that you build up with this if you know you're doing it correctly. For our range specializations, you have Rubble. I use Rubble because Rubble opens enemies up for finishers by stunning them. It's just synchronizes with the build much better, having your heroic takedown mastery. If you can stun enemies from a range and then they're glowing yellow for those finishers, you can run over there to them and then stun them again if you need be. If they're you miss your timer, or if they're still open for the finisher, you can run over to them and finish them, which will drop heroic orbs for you. You can use Bedrock if you want to, which allows the rocks to basically, small debris specifically, does 15% more damage, and it'll pin enemies down, sort of like Thor's hammer will. I don't really use it. I don't think it's necessary. It's not bad though, but I feel like with this build and wanting to stun enemies and get the heroic orbs, that the Rubble specialization is much more useful for the stuns and being able to open enemies up for the finishers. Lastly, for the ranged specialization here, for this tree, Wrecking Ball, large debris basically will roll. It doesn't get destroyed or crumbled anymore. It'll have this effect where it has like a little bowling ball thing. It's not bad at all. It has a good pickup on damage, and it can hit multiple enemies for 10k. But I feel like it doesn't really, synchronize with the build as well as Wrecking Ball. Like I said, being able to open enemies up for the stuns and the takedowns and get the heroic orbs to get your abilities back is really what you're looking for. If you're looking for more damage or a little bit of different utility outside of getting those heroic orbs, then neither one of these are bad, but they will not synchronize as good as Rubble with the build. You'll definitely notice the difference though. You can try to run these two, they're not bad at all, but you'll notice how your rangers don't tend to stun enemies as often, and how you can't finish them for those heroic orbs like you'd like to, in my experience at least. For the range specialization tree, this one's pretty simple. I'm prefer just increase by 15% personally, because it's passive and it's not something you really have to worry about being specific to small or large debris, just overall for the range in general, which I prefer. For this one, you can do the thrown enemies travel faster for fastball. Not bad at all. If you like to throw the enemies that you grab, fastball is a great perk. I tend to throw the debris and use enemies that I grab for melee, because the attacks with vice grip are uninterruptible, so I feel like they're more useful to run up and just slam all over a person than to throw them at them. But that's just me. Also here you have meteor damage, which basically allows large debris to have 15% increased damage when you throw it. I don't really think it's necessary, because if you're running range damage, it already gets the 15% increase, and then this just makes it specific to large debris from what it describes. So I don't feel like meteor damage is useful at all, honestly, because then you're just taking away 50% bonus from small debris for it to just be applied to large only, when you can have it applied to both with the range damage specialization. In the efficiency specialization, I have the one that allows you, I'm running the perk that allows you to basically pick up everything quicker and throw everything quicker, which is the excavator perk. It's like fast hand, sort of sleight of hand, and just pick up the debris and throw them way quicker. You'll definitely notice the difference running excavator, and as I feel like it's real good for fights, being in the middle of combat and just dealing with a bunch of enemies or fast-paced action. The excavator comes in handy, not taking so long to pick up the debris to use it. This here makes small debris attacks while being held do more damage. Hand cannon, whenever you pick up small debris and don't throw it, it'll do 33.3% more damage. And this one is for whenever you use large debris, it will use 33% more damage. Both of those aren't bad if you like to use your debris that you pick up for melee. I use mine for range, which I feel like is more useful, because you can open them up for stuns and finishers and have the 15% extra damage. They hit pretty hard too, so it's better to throw them than to hit with them. And then being able to pick them up quicker, you can just just throw a bunch of rocks pretty quick as hell. So I feel like excavator is pretty useful. I've literally gone a whole fight, honestly, being lazy, just throwing ranged rocks and heavy debris at a boss. It's worked, trust me. Excavator works with Rumble and the range damage specialization, being able to pick up the rocks faster, the rocks stunning much more often on impact and doing more damage overall, as I just feel like it speaks for itself. Here for the defense specialization, Raging Heroics, which increases the heroic charge rate of all of your heroic meters, support, assault, and ultimate by 50% while in rage, which I feel like is very useful. It, like I said, gets your abilities back up faster. The willpower recovery for rage by 10% is also very, very good. If you are having trouble staying alive, I definitely recommend Raging Recovery, because at the end of the day, it makes you a battle tank. I'll use it to actually show you guys in action how it is, because I swap. This is the only ability that I tend to swap between often, depending on the situation. If I feel like I'm not generating orbs often, then I'll switch to Raging Heroics. But if I feel like there's a lot of enemies around for me to kill, then I'll switch to Raging Recovery to, you know, make sure that I have more survivability, basically, which I feel like is good. Raging Defense is also good if you feel like you're having trouble applying damage, but I don't think it's as good as getting the heal back while doing damage, or, you know, getting the boost to your abilities. For the damage specialization here, I am running increased 15% damage while rage is active passively. Just, it speaks for itself. Being able to do 50% more damage while rage is active, while rage already boosts your damage itself, it just makes it even better. You can do the increased damage by 25% while rage is active for light and heavy combo finishers. This one isn't bad, but some enemies still can stun you while rage is active, like with unblockable attacks, so you might get interrupted and not be able to get off that 25% extra damage as often as just having a 15% passive damage bonus at all times, you know. So I feel like that's definitely better. Increased damage by 15% when using hell enemies as a melee weapon while rage is active. I don't really feel like it's necessary, because you get the 15% extra damage bonus while rage is active overall. Like I've tested it. Even like enhanced bludgeon only gives you 15% extra damage while you hold enemies while rage is active, and enhanced damage gives you 15% extra damage regardless. If you're throwing debris, if you are hell holding enemies, no matter what you're doing, it will give you the 15% extra damage bonus. I don't really understand the abilities like enhanced bludgeon or meteor, because it seems like a stupid trade-off, honestly. Why select only getting 15% bonus for one specific damage type for your Avenger when you could have it applied overall as a passive to everything that they do damage wise? So I definitely say that those ones are self-explanatory and the best to go for when it comes to the damage enhancement trees, because the other ones are specific to, you know, one set of debris or ability. For the efficiency specialization, I have the activation of rage cause less. When you initially activate rage in the beginning, it seems like the big burst at the beginning just takes a large amount off of rage, honestly, like when you first activate it. So I personally went for reducing that, because I feel like when you first activate rage, it takes a huge chunk down. So that sort of, I feel like, gave a better efficiency boost than the maximum amount increase. This one I didn't like at all. Berserker Rage, when you like defeat enemies with hell combatants, I feel like that's too specific and situational. You have to be holding grabbed enemies and defeat them with them for that 15% boost. It gets annoying to always grab enemies or hold them to get that bonus, you know. So I don't think that's necessary. Maximum Rage is much better than that one at the top if you would like to run something other than the initial reduction in efficiency to rage. Having that 15% extra bonus to the rage meter is not bad at all. I run something very similar on Iron Man, which gives him 15% extra intrinsic ability energy also. Here in the intrinsic overcharge, for my overcharge specialization, I'm running impact boost, and increases my damage while overcharged by 25%, and decreases the chance that enemies will, I'm sorry. Being overcharged with rage increases your damage by 25% passively. Like that's how it seems to me. Whenever I activate my rage, I automatically do, it seems, about 20 to 25% more damage. But this also impact boost increases the impact while overcharged, which means enemies won't be able to interrupt your attacks as much while you're using rage, on top of that 25% damage boost you get by rage. So you sort of get 25% impact slash stun increase with this specialization, while also getting the passive 20 to 25% damage boost from rage itself. Increases your critical attack chance by 15 while overcharged. This one is not bad at all. I prefer not being interrupted with my attacks and keeping enemies stunned up more often. The increase in critical chance is not bad at all. You'll definitely see it for the ground slams or the heavy attacks for sure. You'll see that increase in crit chance, the higher numbers. But I don't feel like that little 15%, it's not a little 15% bonus of damage, not call me little, but I don't think the 15% damage boost is as noticeable as being able to put out more consistent damage because enemies are stunned and can't interrupt you as often. This here gives you 15% extra defense while overcharged, which is not bad. If you're running the 2 defensive buffs, like I said, it gives you much more durability, and you'll definitely see the difference on how much less damage you take if you're having trouble with survivability. But I tend to heal back the damage I take when doing damage than trying to avoid it personally, which I feel like is a better way to play Hawk than trying to avoid the damage and do damage. You more so want to take the damage, heal back, keep all the aggro, taunt the enemies, and destroy them. You feel me? That's sort of how you're trying to look to play the Hawk. Keep everybody on you so that you can basically destroy all of them. For increased the damage boost by overcharge, this is what I was talking about, the passive boost to overcharge damage, 20%. I was like 20 to 25%. This is the one I was talking about. While overcharge, you'll automatically do 20% extra damage, which is you'll see that 20 damage for sure. While overcharge, it is a whopping amount. Literally, some of your basic light attacks will hit for almost 10Ks. It's ridiculous how much damage you can do with the damage boost overcharge specialization, especially with me not even being 150 power yet and fighting enemies higher than my power level. You do very good damage with this. This increases your stun damage while overcharged and accelerates the rate at which enemies stun meters filled. If you're looking for more stun lock build and you're having trouble keeping with your stranglehold and the rubble and everything else that you have, then I do recommend using stun boost until you get the hang of keeping the enemy stunned and juggled with your assault, and your supportability and your debris. But once you do get the hang of it, the damage boost is definitely the best way to go because you'll be doing overall much more damage and you'll see the difference. The status boost increases your status damage while overcharged whenever you pick up enemies or grab enemies. If you're running the grab specialization that allows you to apply the status effect of said enemy while holding them to other enemies, this is very good for applying like plasma or gamma or PIM's particle statuses, different status types to enemies. Is highly recommended if you're someone who has a status based build, or if you're running PIM particles, which in my opinion is one of the best statuses in the game because it shrinks the enemies and makes them deal less damage while allowing you and your teammates to deal more damage. Status boost is also good. And then lastly, for the efficiency specialization and mastery, I'm running Hothead, and increases the amount of overcharged rage meter by 20% and increases the energy gained by attacks by 20%. You can use Pancake. Pancake is not bad at all, especially with the build that I am using, because you will be opening enemies up for takedowns very, very, very often. So, those takedowns can get your intrinsic meter up quickly. But I feel like for those moments when you don't have it, this is just better overall passive because it's not only for your takedowns, it's for any attack. So like throwing debris, range. I feel like it builds it faster than Pancake, even though it says it has a 50%, because sometimes you might not make it to those takedowns. So this is a little bit more all-arounder and consistent to work and give you that quicker recharge of your intrinsic ability. And then here for Temper, it reduces the rate when you basically drain your intrinsic, of course, sort of like Tony's arc reactor efficiency battery, how it makes him use his suit ability. Every character has an ability like this, which is basically a boost to efficiency and reduction in charge. Temper is not bad at all. I ran it in the beginning, but I don't feel like it's necessary. It's not. Neither one of these two are bad. You can honestly run one of these three, like whichever you prefer. But I feel like Hothead synchronizes with this build the best. And now I'm going to get into showing you guys, exactly why I feel that way. So this is how you want to spec down The mastery tree, you guys can pause here for a second, and if you have your skills, you can swap them like this. For the specialty, this is how I'm running everything. And of course, primary would be just completely filled out if you've capped out your character. And this is what my gear is looking like right now for my boy Hawk.